Well, good evening. Happy Friday. Happy Frigga. Happy Venus Day. I am Tamara L. Welcome to another installation of Just Another Messenger. Now, each episode where we dive deep into the past, examining the philosophies, system, and decisions that continue to influence our world today. Now, by connecting historical content to contemporary issues, we aim to spark thought provoking conversations and encourage a deeper understanding of how history impacts current events, culture, and social norms with a little bit of humor on the side. Now, today is not my normal day to air. I'd like to thank everyone for your well wishes and concern. Had a family emergency on Wednesday, so I was not able to make it back to be able to go live. And being a new channel, we don't just another messenger. We do not have a fill-in at this moment to be able to deliver the content. So here we are, Friday, the eve of the winter solstice, where on December 21st, tomorrow, the sun will be at its apparent motion of standing still. That's what the word solstice means, sun stands still, where the sun will have equal days and equal nights. We'll be off a little bit, about a couple of seconds of the equality of the equal minutes within the sun. And the sun stands still, which is what is called within the doo-wop. So it goes into its lowest inclination. So that's why we feeling this shift. We feeling this coldness and warmth, and it's like a burn off. You know how like a plane take off and you got that burn off feel. We feel that burn off as the sun dives into the doo-wop and rest for 3 days. It hovers and it rests for 3 days. And then on the third day, the sun rises with all wings, and we enjoy the Christ Mass of the rising sun that will bring forth new life for our existence. So that's what we celebrate the Christ Mass for. That's what I celebrate the Christ Mass for. Now, I know there are some that say, oh, I don't celebrate the Christ Mass because I'm pretty sure you may go by the Nimrod story or the St. Michael stories. To each his own. But when you understand the importance of giving honor to nature, which is the first, the pagan of its existence, and all its sustainability in life, you'll learn to give thanksgiving and gratitude to that, and you will enjoy these holidays. So today is a holiday. It's Friday, the day of Venus. Now, so excited about this message going to be delivered today. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. Share and definitely like button, so like the content so it can show up in your algorithm so you can be a part of the conversation as we go live. I know as the channel grow, we'll have more days, but right now, a lot of content I like to bring forward and take a while to put that information together. And I see those numbers are going up, the views are going up. So apparently I'm giving the information worth looking at. So go ahead, subscribe, share, and like to be a part of the conversation that you wouldn't want to miss. Now let's get into some housekeeping rules here. All right, let's get into that. Housekeeping rules. Housekeeping rules. I am going to put up some information here. They done moved this stuff around with StreamYard. Let's get these banners up. Now, please support the channel. Help the channel grow. Now, continue to donate to Cash App. I'd like to thank our sponsors in advance for your sponsorship as we are continue to grow and continue to add additional information onto the platform. And thank you for your donations. I'd like to continue to thank you for that in advance. You continue to donate to the channel, help the channel grow at Cash App at $ Just Another Messenger. You can also, as I said, continue to subscribe, like, and share on YouTube at Just Another Messenger. And follow us on Jam at Jam on X, Jam_404 podcast. All right. And if you'd like to reach us by email, if you have information you would like to discuss or you would like to be a part of the show, please send us an email at justanothermessengerpodcast@gmail.com. As the new year roll in, well, the new year is March. So as the new corporate year roll in January, I'd like to start, bringing on additional talents to have these conversations, like thought-provoking conversations. Just Another Messenger is not a podcast that digs into the business of people, not dealing in that spectrum. So I'd like to bring on and talk about historical things and how it affects us today, how it affect your family, how it affect your pockets, your wallets, and things of that nature. And that's what Just Another Messenger is about. We're bridging the gap between the old and the new. So I'm gonna keep that donate button up as we continue to get started there. And so as I continue to go along, I'll keep that donate button up throughout the entire episode. So before I go ahead and get started, we're going to go ahead and bring in our new introduction before we introduce this episode for today. All right, all right, all right. All right, so we are growing and adding new information. Now, in this episode 9, what we're going to do, we're going to explore the journey from exclusion to emancipation, and we're going to uncover the impact of the Black codes on Blacks, Negroes, colored, African American, Hebrew, Israelites, etc., and all the likes has been grouped into the racial constructs as there echoes in today's modern immigration policy. So we're going to combine all that information together. Now let's just think about this. Last month in November, the United States citizenry, we casted the vote of confidence and elected Donald J. Trump as the 47th corporate president. Now, please pay attention to the vocabulary words that I'm presenting you and make sure we're looking at that in the contents in which it actually is. All right. So now, throughout that campaign, now the top agenda item for both parties was immigration. Now, and the removal of the newly 12 million plus immigrants from the jurisdiction of the United States. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to take a stroll down that pathway of immigration from biblical times throughout the abolition of slavery and current day's migration. Now, we're going to highlight the Black codes on the Negroes, Black, colored, African American, Hebrews, Israelites, etc., and creating systematic barriers that has lasted for generations to come. Now, we'll also examine how familiar these frameworks have influenced the immigration experience in America, drawing parallels between racial expression and immigration exclusion. Now, let's go ahead and get started with that. We got a lot of information to bring. We're going to go ahead and bring that up on the board and get started with that. And let's look at this. Let's look at this. It's called From Emancipation to Exclusion, Black Codes and the Immigrant Experience. All right. Disclaimer. The views, opinions, and thoughts are the protective expression of Tamara L. for storytelling and educational purpose and does not provide statutory counseling for any United States color of law jurisdictional proceeding. But I promise you, my information I provide helps. All right. Now, as we continue to talk about these collateral consequences, we're going to shift our focus here on the social, cultural stigma that's labeling as a felony can carry lifetime social consequences, even after sentences are served. Now, it's not just the labeling of the felonies, it's how the felony status was derived and how it's still applied. And that's rooted into the Black codes. So we're still on point to get this message across. So let's roll. Stay with me here. All right. Now, as we talked before, we talked about the basis of civilization. Now, we talked about the God principle being if you look at this diagram, I have the God principle up there, which is higher than the religion deification that's under it. Now, the God principle goes into a whole nother spectrum of understanding. We're not going to do that tonight. I can do that, but that's going to take some time. All right. So for the night, just keep in mind that the God principle is the apex principle of understanding where the other religions are derived from. And I wouldn't say religious. I would say dogma. You can say dogma, and you can say the deification of the God principle, which is what would be called the anthropomorphic of the God principle, which is Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Confucian, and Judaism. Now, I would take out Buddhism when it relates to deities because the Buddhism doesn't prescribe to a god. All right, so we're not going to go too deep into that, but let's let's look at this and let's look at how it breaks down to the God principle, the deities of a subset of the God principles. Now you go into understanding of law, jurisprudence, which is positive law, and you have negative law, which is statutory law, statute, codes, and ordinance and acts. All right. Then you go into language, which is etymology, which is the true meaning of the word, where you have semantics, is the meaning of the word, which is connotation, which means what people think about this word. All right. Then you get into the people aspect of the civilization, and it deals with the status of the people. Now, that's where the immigration process takes its root. Now, let's get in that. Let's look at this from a biblical perspective. All right. Let's look at the first forced migration of the inhabitants from their native land. And we're going to look at this from the Christianity because, as we said, each civilization takes on a subset as a guiding factor within the society. The United States adopted Christianity as its moral compass. But let's weigh in on that. All right. So let's look at this. Now, the first forced migration of the inhabitants from their native land. Let's look at Genesis 3:24. All right, let's look at that. What it say? Wow, God exiles Adama, which is Adam, and Ava, which is Eve, from the Garden of Eden and installed cherubims, which are supernatural beings that provide protection, and the ever turning sword to guard the entrance. So if there was a ruse, say let's talk about this story of Adama and Ava, right? The story of Adama and Ava stated that we're just going to go over for those who don't know and those who do know and those who are moving forward. The story of Adama and Ava was that they were in this garden of paradise. And of this garden of paradise, they were well taken care of by the God. And the God said, you have access to everything within this garden except for this one tree you cannot partake of. And this one tree is a tree of knowledge, which holds the tree of good and evil. But from that tree grew different fruit. That tree did bear fruit. So which means good can bear fruit and evil can bear fruit. All right. So the God of that Eden said, do not partake of this particular tree. So Ava was in the garden and she was spoken to. The story says serpent. But when you understand what a serpent is, now they anthropomorphize a snake, a serpent, a wise person into a snake. So a wise person, the wisdom of a wise person was anthropomorphized into a snake to speak to Abe and say, you can eat that. You can eat from that tree. Go ahead and take a piece of fruit and eat from that tree. So Ava took an apple. All right. So let's think about that. Let's equate that to, in that apple, she bit the apple and she said, oh, this apple tastes good. She shared that apple with Adama. Adama ate the apple. At that time, the information of knowledge was imparted into them, and they was able to see themselves as being naked. All right. So when they were, when their God came forward and was looking for them in the garden, and they were hiding from their God because they had violated the commandment, a rule. A commandment is like a rule. They violated the commandment of their God from eating from that tree of knowledge of good and evil. So for that, they were exiled from the Garden of Eden. They were exiled. And from that, They say, and installs cherubims, which is supernatural beings that provide a protection that protect. So basically, once you get kicked out, once you defy the God, you get kicked out of the Garden of Paradise and you're exiled. So now you're a refugee in your own land. All right. And you have to go to another area for sustainability. Now let's look at that. Let's look at that. So where did Adama and um Ava go? Where did they go? Sorry about that. This thing is all over the place. All right. So yeah, I know, it's funny because I've been going through these slides all day and everything was in order. So let's look at this. Where did they go? Where did Adama and Eve live after their exile? They lived outside the garden. I'm just going to tell you, they lived outside. And when they say the garden, outside the garden, they live outside the garden of the Lord. They live outside of the protection of the Lord. They were driven out and would not have to live in a world where they would have to work for their food. They would now have to work for their food and face hardship. So that's what they did. They had to now be a refugee in their own land. Now let's look at this. Let's look at the etymology of Genesis. Now, the etymology of Genesis is the first book of the Pentateuch. And we're going to go with that word Pentateuch, which tells among other things of the creation of the world. Now, when we say Genesis, now Genesis is Latin for generation, nativity, in the late Latin, taken as the title of the first book of the Old Testament, from Greek Genesis, origin, creation, generation, from genestal, to be born, related, to genos, race, birth, descent. Keep that in mind. Now it say from the Proto-Indo-European root, gene, give birth, begat. You know how when you read Genesis and it say, and Job begat this child, Job begat that. So that's the Genesis. That is the lineage of the line of that family line. Okay. So that's how we're going to look at that. Now, the Pentateuch. What is the Pentateuch? The Pentateuch is the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible. So, which consists of Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. All right. Now, here it is right here. It say, where did Adam and Eve live after the exile? Outside of the garden. They were driven out and would now have to live in a world where they would have to work for their food and face hardship. Now, let's look at the immigration according to the Torah. We said the Torah consists of the Old Testament, was the first 5 books of the Bible. Now let's look at what the immigration meant for in the Torah. It say empathy towards strangers. Now you should not wrong or oppress a stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Exodus 22, chapter 22 and 21, verse 21. Also in Leviticus 19 chapter, verse 34, and Deuteronomy 10th chapter, 19 verse. Now let's look at what we say legal protection for immigrants. Let's read what it say about that. It say there should be one law and for the native and for the stranger who sojourns among you. That's in Exodus chapter 12, 49. Now we're not going to let Islam off the hook. We're not, because Islam is also part of the United States religious orthodox that's practiced in the United States as well. So let's look at what immigration states about in the Quran. It say migration as a sacred act. Okay. It say whoever immigrates in the cause of Allah will find on the earth many locations and abundance. And just as the Bible names it chapters, it say, there's a surah and Anisa, and so it's chapter 4, verse 100. That's how you read that when you're reading the Quran. All right. Now it say empathy for migrants and the displaced. It say worship Allah and associate nothing with him. And to the parents do good, and to relatives, orphans, the needy, the near neighbor, the neighbor further away, the companion at your side, and the traveler. That is Surah An-Nisa, chapter 4, verse 36. So that's how we now let's look at the political status. What we're going to do here, we're going to look at this political status of migration to understand the immigration policy, and we're going to go into how the immigration of biblical times and the immigration of the day is still connected through the Black codes. Let's look at the political status of immigration. Immigrate. Let's understand this. Immigrate. On the other side is someone who leaves a country. Now, we talked about this before. Someone who leaves a country or region, a person who is considered an immigrant as soon as they leave with the intention to leave permanently and not just to travel, for example. Now, let's look at it. Say the E in immigrate means out or away. Now, what is an immigrant? Is a person who has immigrated, moved to another country, usually for permanent residence, not the past tense in definition. A person is not considered an immigrant until they have settled in a new place. The I am in immigrant means in. So E means leaving out of your home country. Immigrant means into another country, all right, or region. Now let's look at refugee. Is a person who flees for refugee or safety, especially to a foreign country, as in a time for political upheaval, war, etc. Now, asylum seekers is a person who applies for a refugee or asylum in a foreign country or its embassy, especially for political reasons, which means your home country is well aware that you are leaving your current host country and immigrating into a new country for settlement. All right. Islam to you, Sister Dorothy. Now let's look at this. This is America. This is America. This is America. Let's look at the territory known as Turtle Island. Now to your right, that landmass. That landmass is a territory, and we're going to go into understanding the difference between territory and jurisdiction. Now to your left side of that, you see the same map, but on that side, you see where there is nations, there is autonomous nations already settled in the land before colonization. That's what this map shows of the territory. Now, let's look at the etymology of territory. It is from late 14th century territory, land. Keep in mind the word territory is land under the sovereign, under the jurisdiction. So it's the land under the jurisdiction. It's the foundation of a town, sovereign, state, etc. It's a region belonging to a kingdom or associated with a people, probably from late territorium, land around a town, domain, district, from terra, earth, comma, land. So the territory is the land. It is the original land that is given by God. It's the territory in which you are to possess, have dominion over. That's where it say in Genesis 1:28, you are to have dominion over something that is divinely given. That earth, air, water, ethers, you are to have dominion over that. The birds of the air, the fish of the sea, the animals of the land, you are to have dominion over that. That has been freely given for your sustainability of life. All right. So that's the understanding of territory. Now let's look at how let's look at how a nation, one of the nations with a sovereign nation that was settled on the land. Let's look at how they viewed the the right of a foreign nation. Let's look at how they viewed the right of a foreign nation. Now, their Confederacy Constitution number 731 from 73 say the soil of the earth from one end of the land to the other is the property of the people who inhabit it. By birthright, the Onondaga original beings are the owners of the soil which they own and occupy, and none holder may hold it. The same law has been held from the oldest time, which means that there was settlement there from years to come. Excuse me. Now, 1.75 is say when a member of an alien nation comes to the territory of the five nation and seeks refugee and permanent residence. You see that? Immigrate, to immigrate, and seek refugee, which means they're seeking refugee as as asylum seeker, which means they have left their host nation, probably do political upheaval, or just wanting to immigrate out. So they want to have permanent resident into a new nation, and this is what the Constitution dictated for the Iroquois Confederacy. Now, like we said before, if you look at previous videos, it was called the Anishinaabe. It was called the Anishinaabe Confederacy. All right. You in old maps, you will see Anishinaabe Confederacy. And then in the 1800s, you'll see newer maps that say Iroquois. And that consisted of anywhere between 6 to 8 tribes that was a part of that confederacy. You also had other confederacies, which was called the Illinois Confederacy, that consisted of 10 to 12 tribes. But what we're going over right here, we're going over the Iroquois Confederacy Constitution, and this is they 1.75 and how they dealt with right of foreign nation being adopted into their nation. All right. And it say the lords of the nation to which he comes shall extend hospitality and make him a member of the nation. Then shall he be accorded equal rights and privileges in all matters, except as after mentioned. Which means, what is except as after mentioned? That means that 9 times out of 10, they did not have, well, I'm not going to say 9 times out of 10 because it is written, they did not have the right to vote or be a part of the council body, because that was the council body was created through the lineage of the matriarchy. All right. Now let's look at this. We'll say number 76. It said, nobody of alien people who have been adopted temporarily shall have a vote in the council of the lords of the confederacy. For only they who have been invested with lordship title. You look at the if you go and read the Constitution of the Iroquois Confederacy, when it say invested, the investment is in the inheritance of the matrilineal line. So the inheritance is in the woman. So, all right. So it's been invested with lordship title may vote in the council. Aliens have nothing by blood to make claim to a vote, and should they have it, not knowing all the traditions of the Confederacy, might go against its great peace. In this manner, the great peace would be endangered and perhaps be destroyed. Now, let's talk about that. Now, you remember before the election, there was this entire upheaval about the 12 million plus refugees. We're going to say refugees or asylum seekers. Well, we can't call them asylum seekers because they had not applied legally for to be a part of the nation, a new nation. So we're going to have them in the category of refugee status. So these refugees, these 12 million plus refugees that enter into the jurisdiction of the United States, of the territory of Turtle Island. All right. So there was this entire upheaval about their ability to vote. Now, as you can see from constitutions that were already laid down in land, it's apparent the United States received a lot of their structure from the Iroquois Confederacy Constitution, which means they took on a lot of the laws. And Wampum 76 was one of their laws, except for it did not deal with matrilineal. So basically, if you have not been, um, what is it, the naturalized, not nationalized, naturalized into the United States jurisdiction, you do not have any voting power. So that's what the upheaval was about. And they wanted to be able to count them in the number. And they were like, no, 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 no. We can't count them into the number just yet as being a part of a census body population because they're in refugee status, which means there's a possibility that these people, land or area could be restored and they have the free will to be able to go back to their homeland. So that's what the upheaval was about during that time period. So we're just adding some context to the understanding of the argument. I know mainstream media is not going to give you that. So that's why you're getting to hear it, just another messenger. All right. Now let's look at this. This is called jurisdiction colonization on Turtle Island. Let's look at the colonization of America. This is still America. It's North, Central, South America, and it's adjoining island. All this body of land this is America. Let's look at how the area in green was the Spanish. Now this is the one. The map to the right is from 1700. Now this is when the Spanish territory was in green. They were had colonized the America portion in green. Then you had Portuguese in orange. You had the French in purple. You had the British territory in red. You have Russian territory in brown. And you have Dutch territory in purple. Now we're going to kind of peek our little eyes on that little purple area because that purple area is where the Venezuelans come from. That is next to Venezuela, right? That's the area next to Venezuela, the Dutch area. And let's see at the time, you have, and so you have that area occupied by Spain, right? So let's look at the territory of that. Let's look at the jurisdiction of that. And if you look to the right, that is a more modern map, and you will see the change in guard. And we can talk a little bit about how the change in guard took place by wars. To be able to take over a nation. I've been in groups, and a lot of times people think it occurred by just a stroke of a pen. Not that easy. Not that easy. These people did not strike a pen and took over the autonomous nation. They were able to take over the autonomous nations by war. By war. Am I advocating war? No, I'm advocating a more peaceful solution of understanding to be able to have the rights of the indigenous autonomous people be understood, to be honored, and to be to be able to be a part of a structure where it could operate within a society. And I know that it sounds very difficult to where a nation who has usurped another nation would freely move over and allow that nation that failed to be able to stand up and take a seat. So don't want to get into that right now, but that's what's taking place. All right. Now, this is the colonization as of today, most currently as of today. All right, let's look at the etymology of jurisdiction. Now, early 14th century administration of justice, from Old French jurisdiction, modern French 1300, modern French jurisdiction, and directly from Latin jurisdictionum, nominative, administration of justice once again. Now, if we go to the genitive of IUS, mean law and right, see juris, which plus dicto, a saying, from Proto-Indo-European root, dec, to show, also pronounced solemnly. So meaning the extent or range of administrative power, domain over which a legal or judicial authority extends. Let's make that clear. I know that was a lot. What it's saying, the etymology of jurisdiction is a extent or range of administrative power, domain over which a legal, not lawful, legal. There's a difference between lawful and legal. It's a legal or judicial authority extends. All right. That's jurisdiction. That is colonization. Colonization is jurisdiction over the territory, the earth, and the land. I'm hoping I'm making that clear. All right. Now I'm going to move further up to 2000, and we're going to bring that thing back to 1600s again. All right. Now, show some love. Come on, let's go ahead and get those numbers up. Hit like, subscribe, share. As we continue to break this information down, it has great value and meaning to what is taking place in everyday content in the jurisdiction of the United States. Because if you don't understand if you have no understanding of what's going on within this, if you don't have an understanding of what's going on a day-to-day basis, that means that you don't have understanding of where it derives from, and that means you don't have understanding of even how to operate it in it yourself personally. And that's why we hear a lot of you hear a lot of moaning and groaning. Why is this happening? Why is this taking place? You have to get to a point where you have to accept and embrace the historical understanding and not take it as, oh, like you try to have these conversations and someone would say, that was then. That was then. No, that is now. Then is now. Then it wasn't then. The then is now. What took place then is taking place now. So that must be understood. That must be definitely understood. Now, let me see here. Let's look at this. Let's look at jurisdiction colonization on Turtle Islands by early 2000. This is going up to now. If you can see this map, it shows you how the United Syndicated States of America and the Kingdom, let's look in Central South America, we say Kingdom of Mexico. Now let's look at the area called South America, where in the corner it say PR Colombia, Public Republic of Colombia. This is the area of Venezuela. This is dealing with the migrants that is being focused on to capture them and send them back because they're not a part of the Spanish, the French, or any of the previous colonizers' realm. So that's why their focus is on the Venezuelans only. So I just want that to be understood. This is why the focus is on the Venezuelans only. There were plenty others that came through that pipeline, that came through from South America. They came through Central America. They came through the Kingdom of Mexico, and they came up through the Mexico jurisdiction. It wasn't just Venezuelans. It was plenty other nations, citizens that came through. But the focus is on the Venezuelan citizens because there's not an ally, or just say a business deal. Let's look at it like that. There's not a business deal in place to be able to do business with them. So it's like, it's like using your resources up for people that you're not going to get anything out of them, out of their nation from. You can't make any deals or get anything out of their nation from. So that's what the hoopla is about. Now let's look at this colonization of society. Now, I'm going to take this back. I'm going to take it all the way back. Now, let's look at this. This is called the Office of the Colonization of Society. This is what I called your out of America into Africa migration. And this occurred from 1816 to 1904. Now, let's look at that. I want to pull this up here. I want to share my screen here with you on this, and we're going to talk about this a little bit. Well, actually, I can just read it. I can read it for you, or I can bring it up. Whatever have you. Whatever may have you. All right, I can bring the screen up. Let me share the screen here. Let me share the screen. Let me share the screen so you can see for yourself. I don't like to be the only person who have research stuff. And let's look at this. Wrong tab. All right. Let's see. Ooh, what did that do? Did it bring it up? No, it did not. So I bombed that. We're going to stop sharing that. We'll remove that. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put that up and I'm going to read about the colonization, the Office of the Colonization Society. You see, this is a certificate. It say Washington. And this was a society that was formed from 1816 to 1964. All right. Now, the American Colonization Society is known as the American Society for Colonizing the Free People of Color in the United States. And it emerged in 1860 as a national organization dedicated to promoting the manumission of the enslaved and the settlement of free blacks in West Africa, which means it will immigrate the free blacks. Let me see if we getting this correct in the understanding and hearing. It will immigrate. It will take the free blacks out of America and immigrate them into Africa. This was a movement that took place from 1860 to 18. It took place from, let's see where it took place from 1816. And the last black that was immigrated into Africa of the area known as Liberia was 1904. So the out of Africa movement was a into Africa also movement as well that's not talked about. That was a migration that was taking place. So look that up, get into it, look that up. Now let's talk about this International Black Code of the Siskiyou Trust. That's the SSQV Act of 1666. Now, this was an act that took place in London. At the time, the British was across seas. There was a fire that took place in London. When the British was across seas fighting, the soldiers was across seas for the British fighting for colonization of the land. And at that time in London, there's a fire that broke out. And when that fire broke out, it destroyed a lot of people's properties. I mean, a lot of people's properties were destroyed. So just imagine you're out to war and you get notification or you return home just to discover your property is gone. Your property is gone. You don't have your property anymore. Now, the SSQV Act of 1666 was created for the preservation of the property because for the people to be able to reclaim their property during a period of not knowing if they were presumed dead or not. But however, this act has attached itself to the racial construct of beyond the seas into the land, of changing the status of a people from being tied to the territory to racial constructs as Black, Negro, color for the usurpation of the land. So now you consider dead at sea And that's how you're removed from the inheritance of your land. So let's look at this. So I know people be like, well, Tamara, I own a mortgage. Your mortgage is a dead pledge. You don't own a home. You would never own a home. You are a tenant in common. You have an interest to everything on the foundation that's sitting on top of the territory. If you go look at and read your deed, it's gonna say all this tract of land, and it gives the latitude and longitude, and it say for the interest of, and it gives your all caps straw name, and it gives all the information in the description. Now that's for the everything that's built. The shelf is called the shelf. Everything that's built on top of the land from the foundation till above. That's what your interest is in. Your interest is not in the land. That's why you continue to pay taxes even after you have pledged a gift every month for 20, 30 years, and you still don't own the property, because in the event you don't pay the taxes to the jurisdiction holder of the state tax assessor, they will foreclose on your on they're going to foreclose on the land of the territory, which allows uh the taking of the property that is sitting on the shelf of. All right. And this is what the Thessaloniki Act. Let's get into that. All right. It said it's an act of redress of inconveniencies by what or proof of the decease of person beyond the seas absenting themselves upon those lives estates do depend. Now, recital that SESQVs have gone beyond the sea, which means to the land, and that reversioners cannot find out whether they are alive or dead. Now, it say, whereas diverse lords of manors. I'm not going to read all this. I'm just going to touch on some things right here. It said, whereas diverse lords of manors and others have granted estates by lease for one or more life or lives, or else for years determinable upon one or more life or lives, and it hath often happened that such person or person for whose life or lives each state have been granted have gone beyond the seas or so abstinent. All right, now let's look at what I have underlined. It say, whereas a diverse lords or manors. Who is the Lord they're talking about? They're talking about a Lord is the keeper of the land. Now you had the lords that you have the lords today that you call them governors. The governor of Georgia, the state of belonging to Georgia, that is the Lord. That's Lord, and that's responsible for the longitude and latitude within the jurisdiction known as Georgia. All right. Now, what is a manor? Let's look at the definition of manor. The manor system refers to a system of agricultural estates during the Middle Ages. Like I say, this stuff still applies today. So let's not get tricked up on words and definition. Say Middle Ages, it still applies today. That were owned by a lord and run by serfs and peasants. Yes, we're still classified as peasants to this day. And people are like, oh, they're high value. Okay. They're an athlete or entertainer. Okay. Okay. But we'll play that game. And why play that game? Because you're just continuing to fooling yourself. I mean, if you go and listen to Jay-Z and listen to the song Still Ninja, he telling you, he was cracking the code trying to tell you. All right. So it say that were owned by lord and run by serfs or peasants. The lords provided safety and protection from outside threats, and the serfs or peasants provided labor to run the manor. Isn't that what's still going on in city, town, states, municipalities? Where you have, you know, the governor in the big house, which is the house. And see, a manor consists of the big house. It consists of um, a church. It consists of the agricultural land. Then what we have now is called grocery stores. And also you have the village for the serfs and the peasants. So how did anything change? Uh, okay. It still applies. You have to know this stuff still applies. And it still applies, people. Like, it still applies. And we have to get to a point of truth. This is what Just Another Messenger is about. We have to get to a point of truth and understanding in order to make a pathway to liberation. All right. Now, this is what happens in the event. Now, Sestaku remained in sea beyond the sea for 7 years together and no proof of their lives. Judge in action to direct a verdict as though the Sestaku V were dead. So basically, this is saying is after 7 years, if the person haven't came forward, they're considered dead and their estate goes back to the manor. It goes back to the city. Huh? Isn't that the same thing that would happen when someone pass away, a family member pass away intestate without a will or a trust, and they'll let their property sit there and just abandon and is falling down and falling away, and you don't see it on the road as being up for sale or anything. And then next thing you know, after 7 years, now it just automatically pops up on the road in the city on the foreclosure list, because now after 7 years, the clock went on there. When they didn't pay the taxes for that first year, now they say, okay, this person's been is deemed to be deceased, or because they're not paying their gifts to their taxes to the state. So they're considered they're not adhering to the taxation necessity. So after 7 years, they say, oh, the state owns this now. This goes to the manor. And the manor is the owner and holder of that. So it's the same thing applies today. So you can't say, oh, Tamara, that only happened in the 1500. No, it applies today. That's why it's very important to have a will, a trust, a medical directive, and all that in your kinship line. So while you send around, a lot of times when you send around and having what you call these family reunions, you need to incorporate a business meeting to build your family trust, to build your family constitution, to build your family will, so that way your estate stays within the lineage of the clan until you can get it to a point where now it's in the trust of the clan. That's why it's very important for that to take place. If you have not done so, you need to be really looking into. Now, I do offer estate trust, but I only prepare trust for the Georgia jurisdiction. Um, so I do offer that. I'm not going to advertise it on this platform. You can send me an email if that's something you're interested in doing. But it's very important that you have your estate, your finances, and all that information that's in the public domain of the jurisdiction of the United States. You have that information put into a trust. So just want to share that information on you. All right. Now, if the supposed dead may prove to be alive, oh Lord, they done came forward. So they're saying this person come up before 7 years, that person have to prove that that was their property. This is my estate. I'm entitled back to my estate, back to me. And the manor in the state is called reversion. They have to restore the estate back to the person who was deemed to be lost at sea, beyond the sea. Now, let's look at immigration. Let's look at being removed from your ancestors, our ancestors being removed from the territory by war. Our ancestors being reclassified, and even today, the people being reclassified from their autonomous clans, tribes of the constitution in which they held to racial constructs of black, Negro, colored for the United States Census. That is the stealing of your birthright, right? So when you are removed from your autonomous clan, nation status to a racial construct, you're dead at sea. And when you understand that you're no longer black, Negro, colored, African American, and everything that delude to your death, when you restore yourself back to being a natural spiritual person that is alive, and your ancestors occupy a territory, a latitude and longitude in the earthland, and you reclaim that, you are restored back. You are able to restore the claim. You are able to restore the claim for reversion, because I'm going to show you how. You can say, "Oh no, that could never happen." I'm going to show you how that's very well so possible. You're able to restore it back. So it say, provided always that if any person, or person, damn, it say, did you mistype that? No, I did not mistype that. It say, if any person, or persons shall be evicted out of any lands or tenements by virtue of this act, and afterwards, if such person or persons upon whose life or lives each estate or estate depend shall return again from the sea to the land, to be made appear to be living, or to have been living at the time of the eviction, that then and from thenceforth the tenant or lessee who was out of the same of his or her the execution administrator or assignee shall or may re-enter, repossession, and have, hold, and enjoy the said lands or tenements in his or her or their former estate. So, which means you can get your property back. But if you don't know you're dead, you're just going to stay a walking dead. All right. Now, let's look at this case. This case is very important. United States case. It's called the Society for the Propagating of the Gospel. Now, I pulled one of the United States case so it can be thoroughly understood. Because you say, "Oh, this only applies to UK." Or something. No, it applies to the jurisdiction. It applies to the jurisdiction. So let's look at how the Sesquiu v. Act of 1666 case law applied almost 200 years later in the jurisdiction that was once Great Britain and was given over to the United States after the Treaty of Peace of 1783. Let's look and see. Let's look and see how this case applies. Cases called, gave you a word, a definition of a word. It's called stare decisis. Decision stand. It stands by way of treaty. It stands by way of law. Remember, I said there's two laws. There's jurisprudence. Remember, I said there's two laws. I don't have to say allegedly on this, on Just Another Messenger, because everything I'm telling you could be verified. It's quantified, and it is written. There's two laws. There's jurisprudence. There is jurisprudence, positive law. So this case law stands on jurisprudence, which is positive law, divine law. What is yours? All right. And then there's statutory law, which is negative law that is derived from man, which is statute, codes, and ordinance and acts. You remember in Crime Bill, the last episode, we were talking about the Bard from the gun, and we talked about how Mumford got spooked out. He got shook when the Black Panthers came into the court to exercise and demonstrate their right, the Second Amendment right to bear arms. They were like, "Oh no, we can't have these black folks running up in here with guns like that. We don't know what's on their mind." So Mumford went and executed an act and said it's unlawful to bring guns without a permit into the building. And Ronald Reagan signed off of it. That was a violation of the Supremacy Clause. Let's get into it. All right. The United States case, Society for the Propagating of the Gospel versus the Town of New Haven. of 1823. Summary. I'm just going to give a snippet of it. It said the U.S. Supreme Court dealt with lands granted to an English corporate body. It did not say a United States corporate body. It say a English, which means a British corporate body with a religious purpose. Oh, is that why Beyonce got a church? Y'all better catch that and pay attention. All right. So it say the court ruled that the property of English corporations at the time of the American Revolution was protected by the Treaty of Peace of 1783. See, the Secession Act was put in place, as you can see, in 1666. Almost over 150 years later, they were able to use the jurisprudence of this act and say, hey, after the war, the investment was already standing remains in the ownership of that person. Just because it's changing jurisdiction, the person doesn't lose. The person at one point in time was just a natural person. Now we're going to show you the changing of how the definition of persons have changed over time. That's why I said a person of a person and a person. Whew. We're going to look at the definition of person. Now, relevance. The case underscores the enduring legal recognition of the Secession Trust in protecting property rights across different jurisdiction and historical contexts. Remember I said the Secession V Act of 1666 was written across the pond. It was written in British law. Now, didn't I tell you that British, you saw the map, the realm that British occupied at the time before the Treaty of Peace of 1783, ceded, C-E-D-E-D, ceded, transferred its jurisdiction to the corporate nation body of the United States, which was originally called the United States of British North America. That was the original name. All right. Now let's look at this. We said treaty. Now let's look at how it applies. Let's look at how it applies. Let's look at the word treaty, right? It says protected by the Treaty of Peace of 1783. Sorry about that. I know it's going crazy on the screen. Now, let's look at the U.S. Constitution and the Supremacy Clause, supreme law of the land. It says this Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and treaties made, or which shall be under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land. In every state, and the judges in every state shall be bind thereby. Anything in the constitutional laws of any state or to the contrary notwithstanding. Let me read that again. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. I said that before. Statute, codes, ordinance, and acts cannot supersede the Constitution. It cannot supersede the Constitution. And the Constitution must abide by treaties that were already standing and settled. So when somebody say, oh, treaty doesn't apply, stop it. Don't do that. Don't do that, because you don't know how to work it. You don't even know how to work it. Now, Donald Trump trying to show y'all something. Y'all don't keep saying the man a racist. Just pay attention and watch the show. Etymology of person, 1200, person, an individual, a human being, from Old French persone, human being, anyone, person. Modern French, persone, and directly from Latin, persona. Like, what is your persona? What is your persona? Being human, person, personage, a part in a drama, assumed character, originally a mask, A false mask, such as those of wood, clay, covering the whole head, worn by the actors in later Roman. Now let's look at this. Let's look at this. So you know the saying that Maya Angelou states that when people show you who they are, believe them. That 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 is a very that's a very bold statement to make, because persona represents not only the natural person. What is your personal persona? It also represents the mask that people carry. So even that mask that people carry to be able to manipulate, gaslight, or to be able to use someone, that's a part of that person persona, until that fake mask drops and you see the natural persona of a person. So yeah, the person, when the person show you who they are, believe them. So I just wanted to give that esoteric meaning of that also. Now let's look at the legal definition. I thought this was great. I'm sorry, let me take a sip. And I do apologize. We are going over a little hour, but this is some great information I just wanted to share with you. And I just wanted to kind of get it all on here. I want to get it all recorded. And if you have to go off and come back and read, look at it another time, I definitely understand that. But it's Friday night. It's cold. It's cold outside. Yeah, it's cold. Um, ain't no cuffing over here. So I got time tonight to enjoy you this evening. All right. All right. Let's look at the legal definition of person. All right. Criminal Resource Manual, CRM 100 through 1499. The definition of person. It say the term person is defined in 18 USC. You see that United States Code, and you see the little squiggly line, that means subsection. The S is at the top means sub, the S at the bottom means section. So when you go start reading legal books, or even as you're Googling and looking at some legal context, and like I said, this is for educational purposes only, but I'm quite sure my information will help you along the way. All right. So the term legal definition of person is defined in 18, which is volume 18, United States Code, subsection 25 or 2510, section 6, to mean any individual person as well as natural and legal entities. What in the, who let the dogs out? So it's saying that now person has went from a natural being, whether you're wearing a mask, and that was in the 1400s, whether you're wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, to now a person is defined as a natural person as well as the legal entity, which means the creature that one create, aka LLC, incorporation, S corp. That is called a legal person. Now let's let's get into what they were trying to do with that thing on that legal person. They was trying to make you bring that legal person alive with that BOI, now call it the BOBS reporting. That thankful to NSBA, which is the National Small Business Administration, they went to the Alabama District Court and sued the Secretary of Treasury. So when you look up the case, it's going to say NSBA versus Yellen, YELLEN. So what they were trying to do was anyone who created a legal fiction, a legal corporate entity, like, and let's just say, you may have been a secretary or whatever. It may be your business. Who knows? Who cares? But you create this legal fiction to be able to operate in the public domain outside of you, the natural spiritual living being person. So what they were attempting to do is now make you take custody and control of that legal person, reporting that I own this. Just as the trick with the, oh shit. the trick with the birth certificate, the trick with the social security card, So it's like, yeah, we're going to trick you into saying that I am this all caps legal fiction. The trick was trying to get you to accept that you are the holder in due course of the legal entity. And now you have to report that you are that. And if you didn't report you are that, they were going to attempt to fine you $595 a day. Well, and I'm not sure if anyone follow NSBA. I follow NSBA. I follow NSBA. I follow a lot of stuff, that's dealing with some business, not drama. I don't do all that. So what NSBA did was because Yellen, Secretary Yellen, which she just recently declined, she resigned. She is what you call an agent of the government. So which means that the lawsuit had to be against Yellen because she's the secretary of treasurer. So the lawsuit had to be against Yellen. So it's the NSBA versus Yellen, which they deemed, after it all came down to, they deemed that the reporting of the verdict came out that attempting to get business owners to attach themselves and say that is their business have deemed to be unconstitutional. It violates the Constitution. It overrules the Constitution of the Supremacy Clause. All right. So go look at that case law, NSBA versus Yellen. And so for everyone on business, you're going to like the NSBA because NSBA is the one who got y'all that PPP loan. I didn't want it. I ain't going to play with that. So yeah, the NSBA is the ones who put in a proposal for businesses. Since the government want to get in everybody's business, you need to pay everybody that you made them shut their business down. You need to cough up them coins. So that's why people was getting a PPP loan during that period. Yeah. So y'all will thank NSBA for that. All right. Now we talked about the Black Codes, Le Code Noir, that took place down in the Portuguese, Spanish islands, under in the Caribbean islands, under the France, Louis XIV. Now France has seized Martinique, Haiti, Guadeloupe, and other islands. Now keep in mind, we're still dealing with the area of which Venezuela, the South America. Now you said Guadeloupe, Martinique, Haiti. If you look at the map, that is like stone throw away from Venezuela. So we're still talking about the Spanish port that was all under Spanish control at one point in time, right? It was under Portuguese control, then it went to Spanish control. We're still in the same colonization fight. We're still in the same colonization fight. We got to get an understanding of that. All right. Now, in other islands in the Caribbean where there were, as we know, large profits to be made if they could by use for sugarcane plantation as part of the Atlantic's brutal triangular trade. All right. In 1685, Francis Louis XIV, the Black Swarthy King, introduced his infamous Code Noir, means Black Code, to regulate treatment of the enslaved and exclusion of Jews from France's colonies in the Caribbean and elsewhere. Remember, before that, it was under Spanish control. Then France took over control because France it was a French war that took place in France. We're able to take over that area through, everything happened when your area, territory, when your jurisdiction is overthrown, your entire realm, you lose your entire realm. That's how that happens. All right. Now, this was prohibited. Jews could not reside in the French colonies. Slaves must not carry weapons. When we talked about the Black Codes, we're still in the Black Codes is dealing with collateral damages. We talked about the guns. This is migration. Now they're immigrating people away. Remember, slave. Now this is a part of the immigration. We're still here. Stay with me. We're still in the immigration. Now we're in the immigration phase. Slaves could not reside in the French colonies. That means that they're being exiled out of the land. Now they're now in the category of a refugee status or an asylum seeker. They are being exiled from the land because of the Black Code in the War of 1685. Stay with me. All right, let's look at these political status of Black colonists: Indians, American, West African, Negro Moors, West Indies, Spanish Moors, Black British Moors, Bermuda, Jamaicans, Barbados, St. Kitts, Leeward, Caribbean Islands, Black Jews, Huguenots. All right. A slave being defined by whose skin color is marked as an outsider, Black, and being property of the master. Now, in 1639, Maryland statute introduced the term slave to distinguish certain Blacks, Negroes, Jews, Moors, and Indians as subsidiary members of the society. Now, all Negroes or other slaves shall serve the renta vita for life. That was coded in the Virginia legislature in 1663. Now, as we're going to see, the transfer of hand, and this was in the private. This was now the private owner saying, "You are my Negroes and other slaves." And that's and other slaves. What were you talking about? Other slaves? You're talking about people that had nationalities. That's just your other slaves shall serve the renta vita for life in the Virginia legislature of 1663. Now, number 57 of the Virginia Statistic Bureau, or the Vital Statistics Bureau, which is like their census, it classified all non-reservation Indians as Negro. So they're saying all you ones walking around here with your Timberlands, your red bodies, and all that, you're a Negro. You're a Negro. All that. Your Nikes, your Air Force Ones, you classified as a Negro. Yeah, that's how Virginia. If you're not on the reservation, you're a Negro. Now, then the Emancipation came. Well, how many years later was this? This took place from 1663. You're talking about 1863. 200 years late. 200 years later. 200 years of free labor. Good God Almighty, great God, Bowser. That's deep. The amendment abolished the private slavery. And I said private slavery. I just threw that in there real quick. It abolished the private slavery nationwide, freeing an estimated 4 million enslaved people. Enslaved, not slaves, enslaved people. You got to understand these words. It nullified earlier laws, including the Fugitive Slave Act and the 3/4 Compromise. All right. Now, as we talked about, the 13th Amendment became the heartbeat to reintroduce slavery back. 2 years later, to reintroduce slavery back to involuntary servitude, except as punishment from crime. Yeah, we can't force you. We can't enforce the powers of forced servitude of enslavement. But you commit a crime, you break one of these statute codes, act, and amendments, we got you. We got you. We got you back in our custody and control. So that's what the 13th Amendment ushered back in, a loophole back to be able to enforce enslavement. All right. Now you got the Black Codes of 1885, also called the Black Laws. Now, that framework of that were part of a larger pattern of Democrats trying Democrats. As you can see, look at the picture right here. Who's standing to the left? The KKK started the Democratic Party. Yeah, they did. Let that soak in. Oh, but that was then. No, it's still now. It's still now. No. The Republicans, they was called the Radical Republicans, which was made up of free. I'm gonna give you some air quotes. Free Black people, free autochthonous people, free more. I can't put no air quotes there. Free Moorish people. started the Radical Republican Party. That is we the people. All right. The KKK in opposition started the Democratic Party. Sorry to bust your bubble. I know y'all been voting for Democrat for 100 years. I hope you stop. All right. Now, black codes were part of a larger pattern of Democrats trying to maintain political dominance and suppress the freedmen, newly emancipated, transfer of hands. I gave the definition of emancipation, to be free. Blacks, Jews, Moors, Negroes. Why am I delineating so many differences between these constructs? We can get into that. Now look at the restrictions of that black codes. It said bearing arms, gathering in groups for worship, learning to read and write, exercise free speech, testify against white people in court, right to own property. These are restrictions. Right to own property. Yeah, the property that they just took you off of about 200 years back. Conduct business. Yeah, so you weren't able to have your LLC, incorporation, S corporation, none of that. Buy and lease land. But does that make, because you're able to do, now let's clear this up. Because I know somebody say, but we can do that now. We can do that now. Anytime you take the intellectual property of, and this is why I stress the importance of a trust. Now, anytime you take the intellectual property, and the intellectual property is your innate gifts, your skill, knowledge, and abilities that are innate, not through any formal educational training. So you take your innate abilities and gifts and you transfer them into the jurisdiction of the United States by way of filling out an application to incorporate for an limited liability corporation into the state jurisdiction. You just transferred your intellectual property over to the state. The state owns your business. That's why they was able to tell you what to do with your business when that time period of all that stuff was going on with the 19 and stuff. They were able to tell you what you could and couldn't do with your business because you had incorporated your business into their jurisdiction. Well, Tamara, how do I get by way of that? Your business have to be owned by way of trust. You don't have to incorporate your business into a state and to be able to run your business. You can set up a business trust. What do you think these schools are? What do you think these King colleges are? What do you think those are? Those are trust companies. They control that. What do you think the hospitals are when they were able to come away from being a public hospital that was under the King's rules? What do you think some of these but we got to catch up. We got to wake up, catch up. And I hope I'm speaking before this winter solstice kick in. It's a time of rest, reset, and rejuvenation. I hope it has I hope this information I provide has a transformation of awakening for you to be able to understand the jewels and the nuggets that I'm trying to impart in you, on you, and to you. Because we're going to keep deluding ourselves to something that wasn't even built for your living. All right. Buy and lease land. You don't want to buy and lease land anyway. Move freely. You want your land back. You want to be restored back to the land which was taken from you, which is called post-millennium. Post-millennium. POSTLIMINY. You want to be restored back to the land which was taken from you. Move freely through public spaces. This is jurisdictional control right here. That is jurisdictional control. Now, let's see what happened. Let's look what happened during that time period in which these black laws, our people, we was always fighters. That's why it breaks my heart to see so much docility, to see us being so docile. And that's why, when I read the General Education Board and it talks about to take your take these docile people and mold them into our hands and train them to enact what we want them to do in a perfect way that their parents were doing in an imperfect way. We was running our estate. So how could that be imperfect? We were running our estates. So let's look and see. Um, we're almost there. We're almost there. I hope you're enjoying this. Please hit the like button, share, comment, subscribe. As I try to go through this, I'm excited about this. It's so much. I'm telling you, so much information I like to just share with people. And I know sometimes I'm called a crazy bird, but that's all right. I'll be the crazy bird. All right, let's look at this. Let's look and see what happened during that time period. Our people were not settled um, when this when these black codes of 1865 took place. You had the 1866 Memphis riot that took place. It was the morning of May the 2nd, 1866. Like they said, they didn't have any guns, so they was just shooting down. What you say the illustration say shooting down Negroes on the morning of May the 2nd, 1866. But the people were attempting to fight back. They was rioting because they were under these atrocious black codes that were just put on them. So now these people, the people of Memphis, had became refugees. They had to immigrate out of their land and immigrate into another jurisdiction because they were being slaughtered for violating these diabolical black codes. So this is a part of the immigration too. When you break the black codes, you become slaughtered. We saw that in the Tulsa massacre, in the Oklahoma, Black Wall Street. That is a form of immigration, being removed from your land. Now, when I say, now people think that just because people only came from, a faraway island, or that's considered a refugee. No. That's not just a refugee status. The people in Helen that lost their home, the citizen of Helen that lost their home through the storm, they have to be in another jurisdiction. You got to remember all these different states, the state of Georgia, state of North Carolina, state of Virginia, those are different jurisdictions that have their own constitution. So when you leave one jurisdiction to another, you are migrating, immigrating. What happened when you move? Okay. I moved from how many jurisdictions I have, state jurisdictions I moved to. I moved from the Georgia jurisdiction to the Delaware jurisdiction, and I moved from the Delaware jurisdiction to the Florida jurisdiction, and I moved from the Florida jurisdiction back to the Delaware jurisdiction, and then I moved from the Delaware jurisdiction back to the Georgia jurisdiction. And each time I did that, I had to make those various jurisdictions aware that I was leaving by way of the identification card that I surrendered from one jurisdiction to another. When you change your military address, it's a military address. When you change your military address, that is notice that you're moving from one jurisdiction to another. You're going out and immigrating into another jurisdiction. So don't just think you're only an immigrant because just think about the people who, let's say if they was on some type of public assistance, right? And they moving from the Atlanta jurisdiction, and they say if they're moving to the Alabama jurisdiction. Okay, Alabama has to accept the burden of the person who's on state program assistance for housing, food, and all that. That new state must accept that new burden that's coming by way from one jurisdiction to another on their appropriation for their state payout. So it's not just about moving the people that are traveling, traversing from what we say Venezuela and Haiti and all these other Cuba and all these other. No. You're immigrating when you're going from one state jurisdiction to another. Now, you may not be a refugee or you may not be an asylum seeker, but it depends on what's taking place. It just depends on what's taking place. So don't just look at an immigrant as somebody who's coming from afar, because from afar could be 200 miles away. So let's make this plain. Want to make it plain. Now let's look at what else happened in 1863. It's a New Orleans riot. And the cartoons say we're going to trace this back to racial Congress, to the radical Congress. They're talking about the radical Republicans. It is written. You have to know what you look at. They say we take this back to the radical Congress. They're talking about the radical Republicans that had started the party that had started that was called the Radical Republicans. They said, "Oh, we're coming out to kill the black people, and they're gonna have to flee this area known as New Orleans because they're gonna have to run run for cover because of these black laws. So we're slaughtering these people because of these black codes. They're breaking our black codes, and we're doing this because we don't like this new radical Republican Party that's taking shape and trying to take over." Yeah, let's look at it. New Orleans, they trace it back to the radical Congress. Now look at this to the left. It say the riot in New Orleans, murdering Negroes in the rear of the mechanic, basically, I guess, shop. All right. Now let's look at what happened in Atlanta in 1866, the Atlanta riot. Let's look at that. Let that soak in. Let that soak in. Look at when I saw this picture, I was just like, wow, I got to take the thing out the brother. Let's take the logo off the brother. He hanging out the window. He was like, it ain't going down like that. Oh boy. Now let's look at this. After the emancipation, after the riots that took place, they said, the South did not want to release their enslaved people. So they said, we're going to create a buffer zone of the South. Tennessee was not occupied. So they said, we're going to take a buffer zone of the South. And people say, oh, this is called a Reconstruction era. No, it was called the Reconstruction Military District Act. They forgot your textbooks left out the Military District Act. Yeah, your school textbook left that part out. They left that part out. Now look at the districts that they had. They had Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina. They had Georgia, Florida, Alabama. Was that Louisiana, Texas? They had those states right there. The Reconstruction Military District. So when you put in, oh, this is my address of 2302 ABC Street, Atlanta, Georgia, 30325. That's your military district. Those are military addresses. It's hard to understand that. All right. The framework of the Reconstruction Military District Act, four statutes passed during the Reconstruction era by the 40th United States Congress and addressing the requirement for Southern states to be readmitted to the Union from military and federal control imposed during and after the American Civil War. So as you can see, those states did not want to be a part of the Union. They didn't want to confederate. So they put them in a military zone. The federal government put them in a military zone as being basically belligerent. Now, Republican Congress passed the Reconstruction Act. They passed the Civil Rights Act of 1866, the 14th Amendment, citizenship rights, and equal protection under law. I call this nationality theft. And we're going to get into why I call it national death. This dealing with immigration of your national status to the territory. That's what the 14th Amendment is about. And it also created a second Freedmen's Bureau bill. Now, let's look at this. In 1868, the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, it states no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges of immunities of citizens of the United States. It doesn't say citizens of America. It says citizens of the United States. Let's read that again. It says no state, which means no jurisdiction, state, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, no state within this latitude, longitude borders. I'm reading this for understanding. Shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens. It don't say nationals. It don't say Indians. It says citizens of the United States. It doesn't say of America. It says the United States. Nor shall any state deprive any person. Now we went on the definition of person, natural or legal entity. Now a person cannot be a government entity. Derive any person of life, liberty, or property, which means your legal entity is also protected under the Constitution without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction. It doesn't say territory, it says jurisdiction, control of the territory of the land, the equal protection of the laws. That's how you read that. All right. So I'm going to remove this from stage because this thing twerked out on me. Now we're going to get into, I have less than a couple of more. Just got a couple more slides to go and we're almost out of here. And I hope this was let's look at the comments here. Let's look at the comments. Malik Day, peace and love. Talk your shit, take your time, teach, like, share, subscribe, comment. Thank you for sharing a light. Make it plain. So many jewels. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now I'm not able to read what's going on over in Facebook land because I have so many monitors up. Good God Almighty. I have like 1, 2, 3. I needed another monitor. I pulled up one more. So I only had 2. Now I got 3. Now I need one more. Hey, so like I said, thank you for the donations because it's allowed me to get additional things that's needed and I can be able to monitor and things of that nature. So please donate and help this channel grow. Donate on our Cash App, the $ just another messenger. All right. So what I'm going to have to do is share because this thing, I'm going to have to share the screen because to pick up the next slides, the next 1, 2, 3. Oh, y'all gonna like these slides. 3 slides, 3 more to go, people. We're almost there. Now let's look at how the 4th Amendment. All right, we talked about the 4th Amendment. Now let's look here. Let's look here at citizenship. Let's look at that. Let's look at why it's not nationality. Let's look at why it's citizenship. Now, the citizenship for the United States is focused on political memberships and rights. Now, citizenship in the United States is tied to participation in the nation's political and legal entities, including the right to vote, run for office, and access full Constitution protections. Now, doesn't that sound like the Anishinaabe Wampum 75, the rights in their Constitution? So when you are a citizen within that Constitution, when you a permanent citizen in that nation of the autonomous land, you had the right to participate in the political and legal system, including right to vote, run for office, and access full Constitution protection. Now, legal uniformity. U.S. law uses citizen to describe individuals who owe allegiance to the country. I don't know why I say country because the definition for country means land dwelling. All right. So yeah, sometimes you have to, what I heard someone say, I heard a guy say, dodge the hijack. You have to dodge the hijack. So no, it's a on allegiance, let's just say jurisdiction and have reciprocal protections under the Constitution, of the United States. Unlike some countries where nationality can denote a lesser or separate legal status, the United States system simplifies this by focusing on citizenship, which is the naturalization. That is what naturalization is. That's why you're not a national of the United States. You naturalize into the United States. So all this a national of the United States, I mean, that is hogwash. You would never be a national of the United States. All right. Now, cultural emphasis on equality. The U.S. places a strong cultural emphasis on equality under the law, with citizenship being the mechanism that guarantees constitutional rights and protections. Nationality as a separate concept might imply varying degrees or belongings, which contradicts the principles of equal citizenship. Now, let's look at this star right here. It said, by focusing on citizenship, the U.S. ensures that legal, I didn't say lawful, nationality is on the lawful, citizenship is on the legal. By focusing on citizenship, the U.S. ensures that the legal and political rights are clearly defined, avoiding the potential complexities and inequalities that could arise from recognizing nationality as a separate status. So we ain't gonna recognize look, we ain't gonna recognize that we took your stuff. We ain't gonna recognize that. Mm-mm. We ain't gonna recognize that. You ain't gonna be no part and parcel. We took your stuff, and that's you have to operate if you want. You have to operate publicly, and you have to operate privately, and you have to know the difference in the two. All right, let's look at nationality here. Nationality is not commonly treated as a distinct legal status. Nationality, by contrast, typically refers more broadly to belonging to a nation of ethnic identity, which does not necessarily confer political rights or legal operation. Let me read that again for the people in the back. Nationality, by contrast, typically refers more broadly to belonging to a nation. A nation is a body of people under a constitution, clan, kin, culture, constitution, having access to the territory to be able to work with government to government relations, international relations, to be able to have access to the natural resources that were so given by God, the generative operator and destroyer of the created of the creator and creatist of the universe. So if you don't have dominion of the territory, I'm trying to figure out what nation, how we playing this nation game. We got to get this understanding very clear, because all this running down rabbit holes it must stop. It must stop. We must have an understanding. We must have understanding, overstanding, gotta get standing, I'm not gonna go into that. Historical context. The U.S. has historically used citizenship to resolve key issues of membership and rights. For example, the Fourth Amendment overturned the Dred Scott decision, which denied citizenships to blacks, explicitly using citizenship to codify equal belongings. Now, the concept of nationality as a legal status has not been significant in American legal, and that's the United States. That should be United States legal or social history, where race, ethnicity, and ancestry were often addressed outside of a legal framework of nationality. Let's look at this star at the bottom. It say the U.S. is a civic nation. The U.S. is a civic nation. It is a corporate body politic. It does not tie legal membership to ethnicity or culture or nationality, prioritizing citizenship as the single unified status of legal belongings. Now let's look what the race and ethnicity is on it. I found this it's a demand that is being made, that was made back in 2000, April the 27th, 2023. It's a group called themselves the New Negro Republic Lineage Society. A proposal was made on April 27, 2023 to define Negro and its removal as being a race classification in the category with Black and African American. And the sponsor is the Anti-Negro Defamation League, Inc., ANDL. Now, the demand was revising the OMB's 1997 Statistical Policy Directive number 15, standards for maintaining, collecting, and presenting federal data on race and ethnicity, and are concerned with section 4 in your proposal, updating terminology, which recommendation is to remove Negro from the Black or African American. Title 36, section 906.2 defined as Negro, an individual of the Negro race of African origin. Black added to the OMB in 1977 and African American added in 1997. The definition for Black or African American is a person having origins in any of the Black racial groups of Africa, is not the same as that of Negro. The current definition of Black or African American should be separated from Negro because it includes over 3,000 ethnic groups from sub-Saharan Africa to the Caribbean islands and does not reflect the individual history of the Negro race ethnic group in America, which began in 1619 as 20 and odd Negroes landing in Jamestown, Virginia. I thought they said that out of Africa, it was like millions of them. And that's a story that was in the history book. There was like millions that came to Jamestown. No, I told you in previous video, I think it was one or two. I think it was two. It was only 23. 23 Negroes. 23 African Negroes. They first sent them down to the Caribbeans. And when they were no longer able to work the hard sugarcane plantation, they brought those same 23 Negroes to Jamestown, Virginia. And those same Negro, when they had an uprising in 1623, at 1622, with the uprising and the riot in Virginia, they did a census in 1623 and to define how many of them 23 Negroes dead. So Negro, they're classifying a Negro is a person that came from Niger, the Negas, the Niger region area of the sub-Saharan Africa. So a Negro is defined as an African. Now, Black African American has been defined as a native autochthonous of America. So that's why the delineation is there. And they're saying, no, we don't want to be grouped in with the Blacks. Now, that's why, I'm like, damn, we supposed to be in this fight together. Don't we got the same skin tone, same hue? Don't we supposed to be? They like, we don't want to be grouped in with y'all. We don't want to be grouped in with y'all Black folks and African American folk. No, just take us out of Take us out of the category. Don't have us Negroes in there. We separate. All right. I thought that was funny. All right. Now let's look at that in 1939 Physician Handbook on Birth. All right. In death registration released by the U.S. Department of Commerce and the Census Bureau to ensure the birth certificate process, which began in 1902, was done properly. It states color of race of father and mother when either belongs to the white Caucasian race right white. Otherwise, racial origin should be described by stating what people or race each parent belongs as Indian, Negro, Chinese, etc. In the United States. A birth certificate. Now look how they faking and using this document. This is another form of documentation that they're using for the immigration purpose away from your sovereign body. It say a birth certificate is a prima facie legal, it didn't say lawful, legal document of identification for lineage, inheritance, citizenship, and proof of ancestry. So, when someone go and fill out when you're this applies to the day now. This applies to the day when you give birth and you fill out that certificate of live birth and they convert your child over to a legal corporate fiction in all caps, and you check that box that you black, you just killed your damn child again. So yeah, that's what happened. Yeah, you just made them a legal fiction. You made them a legal fiction, and you continue to steal their inheritance because they're using that birth certificate as a proof of the inheritance and citizenship and the proof of ancestry. So when you check Black and African American, you don't have claim to the land. You're dead at sea. All right, you died in the womb. The NRA guidance instruction doesn't mean exclusively, and the usage of Black as an adjective and not a noun regardless of nationality. So they're saying that we're aware that Black is an adjective. We're aware that Black is an adjective when it comes down to nationality. We're saying Black as far as a racial group, not Black as a nationality, a person. Let's look at this play on words again. The NRA guidance instruction doesn't mean exclusively, and the usage of Black as an adjective and not a noun, regardless of nationality, further emphasize the difference in definition between race, noun, and racial adjective, knowing the difference in race of people versus racial group. So this same argument about Black is an adjective, that's not an argument to be made when it's well defined and understood that Black is an adjective used as a racial group, not to describe the noun, the person. That's, yeah. Ugh. All right. So reason for collecting information on race. The information on race is required for many federal programs and is critical in making policy decisions. This is the military control, particularly for civil rights, military control. States use these data to meet legislative redistricting principles. Military control. Yeah, military control. And after that, they, like, let's have a call to action. I don't want to beat this horse too many times. Let's have a call to action. Justice reform now, in mass incarceration, in the ability to not be able to self-identify with who you are. Let's call to action for justice reform. That's what we need. Justice reform now. How do we do that? How do we, the people, power? How do we invoke we, the people, power? We can do that by advocacy and activism, support and create community-based organization. You do know that you now. I'm gonna have to say this because I get a lot of. I have to quantify some things here. I have to quantify some things when I say advocacy and activism, support and create activity-based organization. You do know that you can create an unincorporated association. You are aware of that. If you're not, Google it and look it up. You can have a unincorporated association that meets the need of what you're attempting to accomplish outside of foreign jurisdiction control. You can have it, and it's perfectly, it's lawful. It's lawful because that's exercising through sovereignty and divinity. You can have an ecclesiastical trust. You can have ecclesiastical body association that is lawful. You can operate lawful within a legal construct of a jurisdiction, of a foreign jurisdiction. You can do that. Look these words up. You can do that. Working towards systematic change. Educate ourselves on policy making and create policy changes. Create PACs. Such as also, here's another organization create, which is the Political Action Committee, which are 527 tax exempt organization. And a lot of these falls up under the religious protection of ecclesiastical protection. So you can create that. All right. Create, submit a bill. So I'm in the process, like I said, I'm working on to create and submit a bill. I have not heard back from Senator Warnock, and I'm pretty sure it's probably the holidays and a lot of stuff with it going on up in Senate as well. They probably just not coming to rest, which is stop the utilization collateral consequences on Americans. No, I did not say United States. I said on Americans. All right. I thank you for staying with me, rocking with me. I know this was a breast of information. We normally go live. Like I said, we normally go live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. I just had a family emergency, so I wanted to come on live today, and I had to cram in some different. Then I had to think about it. I said, oh my God, when I'm not going live on Wednesday. Next Wednesday is the Christmas Mass, which is the rising of our wonderful SUN to bring forth life for our new beginning for the harvest. So yes, I am going to be celebrating the energy of the new life that's come forth. Like I said, at 421, winter solstice take effect, where the sun, the SUN, goes and she stands still and into the doo-wop, goes into the bomb. There is a bomb in Gilead, goes into the bomb of the tomb for 3 days, and then on the third day, rise up. That is new life. But let me tell you something. That sun don't come up and the creek don't swell. Baby, we all up out of here. We all up out of here. We all up out of here. So I am happy for the rising sun. SUN. Yes, I am very happy for the rising sun. I give honor to that energy. That energy is our source of life, our sustainability. If you can't understand that, oh well, I'm sorry. But I am going to give honor. I'm not thinking about no Nimrod, and I'm not thinking about no St. Nicholas. I am thinking about the SUN to give all its glorious wonders for our sustainability in life. That's what I will be celebrating on December the 25th. And I hope you do the same. And that is the gift of life. And hope you enjoy your loved ones and give thanks and gratitude, and tune in every Wednesday. We will not be going live on December 25th. We will come back on January the 1st, which is the series. We'll come back on January the 1st, which is series in the midheaven. And we're going to go into Robert Temple's book. This is going to be good. We're going to go into this, the series mysteries. We're going to go in that. So tune in every Wednesday, except for December 25th at 8 p.m. Like I said, not monetizing on YouTube. Please support our channel via Cash App at Just Another Messenger. $ Just Another Messenger. Please, if you know to contact me, you like to be a part of the show, please send me an email, a message via email at Just Another Messenger podcast at gmail.com. gmail.com. I bid you farewell. Everyone have a wonderful, wonderful, when I say wonderful, wonderful, joyous, happy holiday, holy day. See you then.